All right, welcome to the inaugural episode of Pacific Rims. I am Rick Bucher. That is Greg Stolt, longtime NBA executive, former pro playing overseas, including in Japan, proud son of Huntsville, Alabama, if I'm not mistaken, and is kind enough to join me here on Pacific Rims and get this going. This show is going to be focused on basketball, particularly professional basketball, but also the development of basketball in the Pacific Rim countries, focusing on Korea, China, Australia, and Japan in particular. But depending on the subject, we may forage elsewhere. But in any case, Greg, thank you so much for joining me in this venture. And I'm excited for people to get to know everything that you know about Asian basketball in general and your experience working for the NBA in making that happen.
Thanks, Rick. It's it's a lot to unpack here in Asia. Basketball is incredibly popular. It's played amongst a lot of people. I've had a real fortunate opportunity to spend a lot of time playing here, or working here, and playing here, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
So, help me understand what inspires a kid from Huntsville, Alabama, to build a life and a career in Asia.
Sure, a little bit of a background. My father was in the military, so we moved around. I grew up kind of all over the place. Probably my first experience in Asia was really living in Hawaii as a kid,
Hmm.
where you're kind of locked into the Asian culture at all angles. But moving around and seeing the United States and interacting with different people, and then of course pursuing a basketball career, I didn't really have an opportunity to play professionally in the United States. I tried in the G.League and I tried in the old IBL, but my real career pathway was overseas. And my first taste playing overseas was in Japan after a couple of years in Europe. And Japan opened up my eyes to a whole new world of basketball, of culture, potential business opportunities. And that was kind of where it all started for me, spending a year in Japan, Niigata, Japan, excuse me, and interacting with my teammates, having a situation where my life relied on an interpreter because I spoke none of the language.
Hmm.
Uh, some teammates spoke English, so I could connect with them, which made me want to really focus on learning the language a little bit so I could build relationships with my teammates. But really, it started with my international basketball career and having a chance to play in Japan. And that opened up a whole new world of opportunities here in China and elsewhere.
What is there a way to describe the difference in the culture between uh, Japan and what you experienced at Florida playing for Billy Donovan? Which, by the way, for those who may not know, um, my man Greg is very modest. He is an SEC legend, but if you talk to him about playing for Billy Donovan and playing for the Gators, also a Gator legend or a Gator Hall of Fame, I don't know, but should be based on the way that they talk about you. In any case, is very modest about who he was as a player, and I don't think I'm exaggerating in saying that. So I'm not sure where the modesty comes from. I certainly don't suffer from that myself. But Greg could play the game.
I think legend's a little bit of a stretch.
Hey, I'm just going by what I read online. They refer to
Yeah,
you as an SEC legend.
I think probably for me, the amount of players that come out of Florida since I've been there, think I was probably at a point in time where the very best players were busy playing in the NBA, and I was the default guy that was free to accept the award at that time. I'll take it. Coach Donovan was incredible. He came in after my first year at Florida. And obviously, you've seen the results at the University of Florida and what's gone on with the basketball program. I think he pushed all the players at another level, mentally and physically, and really, I mean, he was tough and he wasn't easy, but he also sticking with it and working with him really. If you're into basketball and you're really committed to growing your skill sets, he was with you to help you achieve those goals.
Hmm.
Now, the difference between there and Japan, or difference between there and somewhere else in the world, is quite different. I mean, college basketball at that time, which is quite different than today, was you're probably going to be at a location for 4 years,
Hmm.
and you're kind of building a chemistry with multiple players over a course of a couple of years instead of new players coming in and out all the time. I would say probably college basketball today is more like playing international, where teams are hiring guns. You're bringing in a point guard and a big, and next year you're worried about your next job and where it's going to be. And it's constantly you're kind of floating around as an import player. Going back to your original question, I think Japan, I was hired myself with another American player. We're living in this city of about 400,000 people. And we have a role and responsibility as import players with our other 12 teammates, 12 Japanese teammates. And obviously, ultimate goal, and the holy grail is to win games, but also for us was to we had to put up numbers. If we didn't put up the numbers that they expected us to put up, there was another import waiting to take our job through an agent that these teams had relationships with. So a lot of pressure, but obviously, if in a very high level of basketball, but obviously, if you did well and performed, the nice thing about Japan is they're very loyal, and you had an agreement, and they would stick to the agreement, and they keep you around as long as you put together numbers and help the team win. In Japan, you kind of look, okay, guys like me at the 3-4 spot, they average 20 points and 12 rebounds. Guys that would play the 5 spot may average 15 points and 14 rebounds. And if in these guys that did this had elongated their career from 2 years to 5 years to 10 years in Japan.
Yeah.
And obviously the goal in some of these countries is to stick as long as you can. And I would say the one thing I experienced in Asia and talking to other guys that played in Europe and Latin America and other countries, um, most guys that come to Asia want to stay in the country that they play in. So the guys that come to China want to stay here. The guys that go to Korea want to stay there, partially because, of course, the salaries are very good, but also because the countries are very comfortable and very nice to live in, and the teammates are fun to play with, and the coaches are generally pretty good. And so, I think guys that come here want to stay here, and that's the real focus is to do what you can do to stay and stick.
Yeah. So I would think that just chasing numbers in order to keep the job could be counterproductive to team chemistry. How was that an issue? And if it was, how did you guys get around that?
So I think the best teams, the teams that win, and I always said this in Japan. I've seen it in China. I've observed it in Korea and other countries. The teams that win have the best local talent. So if you look at the teams that dominated the majority of my time in China, watching and working in the NBA here, is Guangdong. And what
Mm,
did Guangdong had? They had Yi Jianlian, who played in the NBA for 6 or 7 years, and he was the most dominant player, local player. And you add a couple complementary pieces from the U.S. To kind of fill in with him and a couple other national team players, and they're unstoppable. The very best teams here have the very best local talent, and those imports don't necessarily have to put up huge numbers because they don't have to. Now it's other teams, generally the lower level teams. They may have a younger roster. They may not have as skilled of players, and those teams, the real goal and objective for the import is to put up big numbers to kind of make those teams keep them for the next year.
yeah.
And going back to your last question, I've never had it when I came in any country in Europe, in Asia. A team said, we need you to score 20 and 15. You're a role player here, so we need to get 10 and 12. I never had that. But obviously, throughout the year, if a team was a little frustrated, they may put a little pressure on you to score more, to rebound, to block shots.
Hmm.
Something that I never really did, but you get that occasionally.
Yeah. Interesting. And you said that playing in Japan opened up a lot of opportunities for you. What was it about playing there and living in that culture? What did you learn from that?
So I remember when my first season there, my family came over and visited. There's a break in the season. Back then, that foreigners couldn't play in this. There's a tournament called now it's called the Emperor's Cup. It's called the All Japan Tournament, and my parents would come and catch a couple games, and then we'd have like a month break. And I would stay. Our team, my first team I played for, we were a little bit lower budget. Most of the Americans would go home for Christmas. Myself and my teammates stayed, and we would train with the team during the off season and or during the break in the season. And my father was like, this is an interesting place. The Asia's it's a big business market. Things are happening here. Maybe you should think about, if there's opportunities that you could connect with an American company, or maybe he's thinking about the language or whatever it is. It's, I think he understand and noticed my interest in Japan over my time in Spain, or France, and Belgium, and so forth, which I also really appreciated. But there's something different about Japan, and I think obviously anybody that's been to a big city like Tokyo or Osaka or Shanghai or Beijing and places like that, the energy. The first thing is the energy. The second thing is you hear about the business opportunities and the things that are happening in the region. And I think ultimately you start getting interest in looking into, okay, what can if basketball ends today, or if I don't, my career is not going to last out, I'm going to be done at 35, 40 at the very, very longest. What can I do to kind of leverage this experience into something in the future?
Was there any learning curve for you in terms of adapting to the culture and particularly the style of basketball, how you practiced, how you were coached, like all the dynamics?
I felt the learning curve was a little bit steeper in Europe, to be honest with you. I My first real season was in Brussels, Belgium. Before that, I played in the Dominican Republic. I went to Spain for a bit, but my first real season was in Brussels, Belgium, and I Belgium's a great starter league. It's a small country geographically, so in Brussels, it's kind of like high school. You never really have a road game. You come back home. You go back to your apartment every night. Brussels is a big city. English is widely used, and but the basketball side was like you're doing something every single day. Um, and so you play a game, and in imports for me in Belgium, I was playing the whole game. I play 40 minutes, and then on Sunday, you play on Sunday, and then you on Monday would be the refresher day where you go run around a lake for an hour and a half in 25-degree weather. And I tell the team, like, can I get like, and I'm young and I like basketball and I'm motivated, but I never felt the running around the lake was conducive to helping me become a better player and helping support the team growth.
Yeah.
And so it was a constant that in Belgium, and no knock on the league. I thought the league was fantastic for guys like me that were good players, not exceptional in college, that needed to get stats to find their way. You go to Japan, and I thought Japan, you have a contract. And I think the thing about Japan is, and I think I can't speak because I didn't play in the rest of Asia, but I think there's contracts, and I think teams are quite fair and leagues are fair. So generally, what they have in the contract is what it's going to be. I think they also understand the importance of the season versus the practice, but also understand the importance of the players integrating with the team. Uh, I felt like the coaching staff in Asia had been a little bit more connected to maybe the way things were done in the United States, and handled import players a little bit. They were a little bit more supportive for us because they understood that it's quite different from a lifestyle from what we're used to in the United States. And
Yeah.
so I never felt a real steep learning curve playing in Japan in both the cities I played in. And I felt the quality of life and the teammates and the coaching staff were also very, very good. And surprisingly better than what probably many would expect, that haven't been to the region.
Where are you located now?
Currently in Shanghai, China. We've been here. My wife and I have been here for about almost 14 years, 13 and a half years. Beijing for 3, and then we've been in Shanghai almost 11.
Okay. And that was largely based there because of your work with the NBA, correct?
Correct. So I started with the NBA. After basketball, I worked professionally in Tokyo for about 2 years, 2.5 years with a Japanese manufacturer. And through that, I got an opportunity to work in the NBA and international basketball operations in New York. And so I worked in New York for 3 years, and then New York, the NBA is really what brought me to China. So, and we've been worked in the NBA in China for about 13 years,
Hmm.
12 and a half years, 12 years, I'm sorry.
And what was the mission statement when you went to China, when you started out? What was the goal?
So about 15 years ago, y- Yao Ming was at the end of his career. I think Commissioner Stern had an absolute global vision to grow the game, get more basketballs in kids' hands, identifying talent, supporting coaching development, referee development, really elevating the game of basketball. And so when I was in New York, I spent a lot of time between India and China, two very different basketball markets, but obviously huge populations and big business markets. And so the opportunity came up, and for me to come to China about 15 years ago, or 13 years ago. Basketball here is immensely popular. They have great infrastructure. There's an economy, a very strong sports economy, and the opportunity to come to China was a bit of a no-brainer for me. And for me personally, it was well, China is here to stay. It's a very important global economic driver, and for myself personally, I wanted to see what was going on here and learn about it. The NBA's goal, NBA had a good business. I think the thought process here in New York was if there aren't players from China, like we're very fortunate to have Yao Ming, but why aren't there more?
Yeah.
Where are those players? What can we do to really influence and grow those players and support their growth? And so, after Yao, you had Yi, and you've had Zhou Qi, and you've had Zheng Fangbo, and now you have Yang Han Sen. But are there guys that are being missed? Are there opportunities to kind of influence the pathway and development for these players? And so that was, for me, it was high level, it was getting kids to participate, more people to participate in the game, and then obviously supporting the new pathways for players if we identify talent in
Yeah.
the system.
Well, yeah, this is what's going to be interesting in particular. What I look forward to in doing this show with you is one. I know Yao Ming well. Wrote a book with him. I was there for his NBA career. Went over and first met him when he played in his last CBA game for the Shanghai Sharks, which kind of inspired the book because I saw the cultural difference between what he was leaving and what he was coming to, and it still blows me away that he handled it as well as he did. But one of the things that fascinates me that I look forward to breaking down with you is that was the thought when he came over. Like Wang Zhizhou had come over, and then it was Yao Ming, and the thought was this is going to become, a gateway to Chinese players coming over and playing in the NBA. Just by sheer numbers, there has to be talent, untapped talent over there, right?
Yep.
And it's actually kind of turned out the other way in that you probably have more Americans. The funnel of Americans going to China has been greater, whether
Yep.
it's because of Stefan Marbury or some of the other players or the development in China. Again, that's something we will discuss here in terms of what the dynamics are that created that. But let's start there because I'm curious. We can get to why that was the goal then and why it is now. Give me the state of the Chinese Basketball Association as it is now, and the development of basketball talent in China.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say it's constantly evolving here. When I when I was a player, guys like me played here. Meaning not Stefan Marbury, not Tracy McGrady, good, solid NCAA players that could come over here and kind of fill a void. And then I think over the development of the economy here, the development of the population of basketball fans, um, the sophistication of the basketball fans and the owners and the relationships that they built, they're able to bring in much better, much more higher profile talent. And so in the pro league, it's really evolved from, a league that was okay and it was here to really a high level league that's attracted some of the very best talent that's not in the NBA to come over here and can create a really competitive, compelling basketball league.
Hmm.
I would say over the last couple of years, at least of 15 years, I've really watched it. Initially, like 15 years ago, I think players like Marbury, like Tracy McGrady, like Jimmer Fredette. There's hundreds of really great Americans and European players that have been here. A couple Latin American guys. Um, they come here and and I'm not in the meetings with the teams, but sitting and watching them play, it's almost like if you don't really put up big numbers, your job's in line. Your job's in jeopardy. And so you'd see guys go for 70 points and 60 points and 50
Hmm.
points,
Hmm.
and you almost felt like they must have to do that to keep their jobs.
Yeah.
Now I think it's developing a little bit where the Chinese players levels have increased, maybe because these high level imports have been in the market so long. And so the Chinese players are a little bit more influential from top to bottom. It used to be the teams with Yijian Lian and Wang Jiji. Those Chinese players, those local players would be able to carry some load. But now I think from top to bottom, the local players are much more influential in the team success than maybe they were 20 years ago or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I would say it's constantly evolving here. I think the economy, I think it's the maturation of the teams and their relationships with agents, understanding the market in the United States and what type of players they can attract here. Plus, I think basketball and domestically, the level of coaching, the level of competition is increasing. So overall, the players are becoming better.
Same questions for the Korean League, the Korean basketball, the KBL, which I know that's probably what I know least about when it
Yeah.
comes to the Pacific Rim uh, professional leagues.
Also, the league I'm least connected to it. I when I first started in the NBA, they were incredibly proactive. The KBL had a commissioner that was very proactive, and one of their league has always been very competitive with very talented and skilled players. They had a distinct style of play, a lot of five-man move, five-out motion movement. A lot of guys, everybody on the court could shoot. A little bit bigger and not quite as big overall in size like teams in China, but bigger than teams in Japan. And of course, they would attract very good American or European players to play, import players, because salaries were good and the teams were funded by major companies like Samsung and LG.
Hmm.
My take on them is what I like about Korea is they have a very distinct style of play. I think their coaches are very good. They have, I think, league wise and business wise, they're probably lagging from China as well as Japan and some of the things that they've done in the last 20 years. But I would say of the three, Korea has a lot of potential as they kind of grow and evolve the league there. Um, a lot of it, I think, has to do with the overall business side of things, which we could talk about Japan and what they've done. But
Yeah.
I think the business side of things in some countries inhibit kind of the overall growth of the basketball in those respective countries.
So what's the ownership structure when it comes to China, Japan, and Korea? I mean, I think for American fans, we're just used to an owner having,
Yeah,
buying a franchise. He's got his business over here, and then may have, partners that purchase the team, but they feel like separate entities. The team
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
feed the other. And I feel as if there are certain franchises, I just don't know how prevalent it is, in Asia and around the world outside of the United States, where it's a company that supports a team. Like their
yeah.
their logo on the jersey is there because they own the team, not because the owner sold that advertising to a particular outlet. But educate us on how the ownership structure works in the various Asian leagues.
I'll speak on Japan because I know it the best because I lived it. I could also speak a little bit on China. In Korea, they're all similar, so there's some interconnection with each of the leagues. But Japan used to be straight company-owned teams, which Korea is now, and China is a little bit now. My first team in Japan was the only team that was not a corporate owned and operated basketball team. We were ran by an owner, kind of like the United States or the NBA, where you had an owner in a city that had business interests, and basketball was kind of one way for him to promote. But he let the basketball team operate as a professional basketball club. So that team had to drive sponsorship, they had to sell tickets, they had to get merchandise, they had to do marketing and promotions. And for me as a player in Japan, I would once a week we'd have to go do clinics for kids. Me and the other import player, we'd have to go do media interviews. We'd have to do all sorts of things to engage with the fan base. Because even though the team was owned by somebody in a company, the team was separate and it had to live independently of that company's business interests. So
Hmm.
very similar to what you'd see anywhere else in the world. My next year in Japan, I played for Panasonic. And so when I was in Panasonic in Osaka, I was a company employee. My teammates, my Japanese teammates, would from 9 o'clock to noon be in the office somewhere in Osaka. You'd ask them what do they do in the office, and they just say they read the newspaper. But basically, they were company employees, and they would play basketball, and then when basketball is finished, they'd have a job with Panasonic somewhere in the world. It could be sales or marketing. They didn't really know, but that's what they did. And that's kind of the traditional history of basketball is in Japan and South Korea, and China is a little bit different, but guys would work for companies, and then when they're done playing basketball, including imports. Before my time, imports that played for Panasonic actually got jobs with Panasonic, which was pretty sweet. Those days are gone. But so basically, it was a company team that was, my feeling was, okay, it's to promote the company. You got the logo on your uniform. You're playing throughout the country. You're playing to support your supporters are going to be the company employees, and it wasn't really a business focus. It wasn't really a It was just a kind of a tax write off for a company, which I felt from high level. I would walk around Osaka, I would meet people, and they didn't believe there's a basketball team there because there was no real business. There's no marketing or promotion. They thought I was an English teacher, and I no, I'm playing basketball. That's my job.
How,
And that's
how
kind
did
of the
you?
way it was until the B.League evolved over the last 15 or 20 years to what it is today.
Okay,
Korea's like that. I don't think the players are company employees, but
hold on though. So look, you're a University of Florida grad, right? You're over here. You're starting your career. You're in Japan. You're a professional athlete, and you meet people, and they don't believe you're a professional athlete. That can't be. There is no such thing. Like, what are you what are you thinking? What's your reaction to people responding to you that way?
so you get a little combative. First of all, you're like, well, okay, well, I'm getting paid to play basketball. That's, you can think whatever you want, but
Right.
then you do think, why aren't they promoting basketball here and trying to get people to come that live within 10 or 15 minutes of the arena? And the basketball is compelling, and then there's national team players, and you got good import players, and why aren't they doing this? And so that's the combative side. The other side is like, well, you can think whatever you want, I'm getting paid. and
Yeah.
and really even better than that, I was on the Panasonic pension, so I had a pension coming out of
There
that
you go.
too. So it was, you didn't really worry about it. But so what you end up doing is you invite people to games, you give them tickets, and come and watch and have fun. And
It's like being a stand-up comic, where you like
yeah,
you're out on the street in New York, like handing out
what do you
tickets.
really do?
That's awesome.
It's
But
it was, and so I think, but ultimately that's the reason why Japan, I think, over time changed the way it is. When the economy is bad and Panasonic can't sell refrigerators, We got to cut costs, cut basketball, cut volleyball, cut baseball.
Hmm.
Hitachi, bad economy. And I think that's why, Japan at one point had like 15 or 20 company teams. When I was there was eight, seven plus the team I played for, the other team. And I think over time, the B.League there realized, the leadership in Japan realized this isn't sustainable. We got to be more professional. We can't rely on just one company kind of funding everything. And so they've evolved incredible, which we could talk down the line,
Yeah.
the specific things that they've done. And I think Korea's experienced that, and I think China's experienced that as well. These singular owners, these company owners, that need to, like, if the economy's bad, they got to cut costs. They're going to cut sports right away, and there goes the basketball team.
How did they adjust that, or have they adjusted that so that they're not hanging on the whatever the economy happens to be doing as far as the health of the league or the team?
So the team I played for the very first year is a city called Niigata, and it's on the Sea of Japan, about 2 hours north of Tokyo. And that team was professional. They were the only team in our league that was not corporate funded. And so the good side of that is they were business oriented. They marketed and promoted. We had full stands every game. People would travel to other cities and watch us. We represented the city. The bad side of that for the import was we were getting paid like a quarter of every other import in the league, maybe a lot, maybe less than that, because they don't have the funding. They didn't have the budget that Mitsubishi or Toyota or Panasonic
Yeah.
had. And so, but that team really was the first team in Japan that said, "Hey, for basketball to grow, we got to we have to have pro business people. We have to have professional coaches. We got to leverage any resource we can in the city to support this basketball program in case the economy goes bad." And a company, and so they really were that team was the initiator of what the B.League is today, where I think they have 20. Next year, they're rebranding their league. They're going to have two leagues instead of three. I think they have 25 Division One pro teams, and then they're 20 Division Two. I have to take a look. But overall, there's like 40 professional teams, Division One, Division Two in Japan. Some are still supported by Toyota and Mitsubishi, but they're not operated.
Got it.
And supported meaning they're getting sponsorship funding, but there and maybe some facility operational management, but they're not. The coaches aren't Toyota employees anymore. They're not Hitachi
Yeah.
employees anymore, and so really, it's become like what we have in the United States.
Have they developed an audience? I mean, do we have a fan base that is growing for these teams in Japan?
Fan base is incredible. Obviously, I recommend this. This is one of the benefits of my job in Asia. Is I've played basketball and then working in the NBA. And now I'm working in another capacity, but I get to go to watch a lot of games. And they have, I would still say baseball. If you walk to, you fly to Tokyo, the first face you see is Otani, and then the second face is Otani, and the third, and then finally there's another sport that you see marketed somewhere on the street, soccer. But they have really found a niche. The B.League there in Japan has found a niche in how to in finding in marketing the game, in marketing their local stars, and really making it a community engagement where
Hmm.
you go to the game, the gates open 2 or 3 hours early. They have concessions, people are eating. They have interactions with team leaders or mascots, things for kids, and I'd say the fan base, the arenas overall go from about 5,000 to 15,000, and those 15,000 seat arenas in Tokyo will sell out regularly,
Yeah.
without a blink of the eye.
So of the three leagues that we've talked about, China, Korea, Japan, how did they stack up when we talk about the NBL and the Australian League?
So I would say, and I've been a little bit all over the place. I played in the SEABL 22 years ago, no, 20 years ago or so. That was the NBL one. That now it's the old NBL one. I think, of course, we all know Australian basketball and the level of talent that comes out of Australia. the very high level of coaching. And I think the professional league is certainly developed there. They've learned how to market and promote their league a little bit much better than they did 20 years ago. And out of that, you have, I would say, in the region, the most compelling, highest level of basketball. I think the imports that come in, the business that they've created out of it, the ability to pay players more, and then of course you got the Australian talent, which is exceptional. And so I think all those things put together, it's the best basketball market best basketball level in Asia Pacific.
Yeah. And I'm remiss in not asking. So, with the growth of basketball in Japan, the professionalism of it, do imports now, are they still mistaken for school teachers on the street, or has the profile changed?
Those days are long gone. Imports now are very well known. I think again, the teams are their businesses now, and so they're doing anything and everything they can do to leverage the players and their marketing. And part of it's your marketing. You market the Lakers, but what really makes the Lakers exceptional is you have LeBron James and Luka Doncic and everybody else, and so the teams, I think a lot of business people that are involved in teams in Japan have studied the NBA. They've studied European soccer, the NFL. They've actually worked or interned or gone to school in the States and been part of these experiences. And so they've brought a lot of that back. And of course, they localize it for the Japan market. But players are extremely well known. And certainly some cities are basketball is more popular than others. But I'm guessing players now aren't walking through the streets in some of the cities they live in without being bothered. I think
Hmm.
again, it's not the level
Interesting.
of baseball or the level of soccer,
Sure.
but what's going on there is significantly different than what it was 20 years ago.
And which one would say has the most untapped potential, and that because of where it is and the way and its approach now, you could see it being a formidable force or dramatically changing its position wherever it might be in globally or in the Pacific Rim? Which one has the most growth potential as you see it?
So I would say it depends on really what the criteria is. The ones you have the countries that have had established professional leagues for years. You have China, Japan, South Korea, Chinese Taipei. You have Australia. You have the Philippines.
Yeah.
Those are probably the big basketball markets that have had a culture and history of playing and competing. And at the international level, you having had some success in FIBA events, in the Olympics. The next couple of countries I would say are emerging, and this is also going to base off my current role. I think Mongolia is very interesting. And I also think Indonesia would be another one that's kind of interesting. And
Hmm.
partially because economy. I think the economy is growing in those countries. And I think FIBA installing kind of 3-on-3 to promote basketball for countries that may not have a lot of culture, and it's a little bit challenging for them to compete against the Chinas and the Japans because they don't have a lot of basketball. 3-on-3 is kind of leveled the playing field, and having a little success in that has helped grow the 5-on-5 and then ultimately the pro leagues in those two countries. So I think it's a mixture of a lot of things, but those are the two that I think are quite interesting to watch and monitor over the next 5 or 10 years.
So, as we go out the door, this is particularly pertinent and timely to ask this question. Greg, why did you agree to do this podcast with me? And after having done the first episode, are you still of the mind that you want to?
So this is, I would say I've been in basketball for my whole life. It's something I'm passionate about. And then I've committed a big chunk of that life here in Asia, kind of observing and studying and building relationships and trying to help support and positively influence the game in Asia. I think doing something like this will put some exposure on what I'm doing currently in the university space.
Yeah.
But also, I think there's a lot of stories and there's a lot of personalities, and and there is a lot of interest, but maybe not a lot of people that have access to tapping in and seeing what's going on here. So I think this is something that could fill in that gap.
Yeah. And I'm remiss in not saying it right off the top. Your title is what with the Asian University Basketball League?
So I'm a vice president of basketball operations, and so the Asia University Basketball League. I'll give a bit of a background. We launched our first tournament last August in China. We had teams from Japan, China, Korea, Chinese Taipei, Mongolia, Hong Kong. Uh, so we're starting our next home and away. Our real home and away season started in November this year. So it's exciting. It's a startup. I do basketball operations, but because we're a startup, I've been able to interact with potential sponsors, with media companies throughout the region, working with federations. And so it's something that I did in the NBA, but it's a smaller company, and it's a lot of juggling because you're trying to figure things out on the fly.
Sure.
And so it's been really interesting. And to me, it's a whole void of basketball that we're going to be able to fulfill and lift and support the growth of the game in the region and create a business out of it.
Great. So you didn't answer the second question though.
I forgot that one. I talked too long on my answers.
That was that you're going to continue with me after this first episode, that you're still in.
Let's do it. Like we didn't even really scratch the surface. I
Yeah.
think this is a little bit me too much talking, but I think there's a lot to be talked about and discussed. So I'm looking forward to this.
For sure. I am too. If you have any questions, if you have any topics that you're interested in that you would like Greg or myself to delve into here on the show, don't hesitate to reach out to us via social media. The Pacific Rims can be found both on Twitter and on Instagram. And so that's it. For those who joined us, thank you. And we will do it again next week.